this section, I'd like to talk about pins. Pins are incredibly valuable, and I highly recommend that anybody, I'm sure not the only person that does this, use pins for every city that they build, starting with the first. And here we have a really good place to settle and explain just why pins are really important. Now, we can all agree that Civ 6, arguably the biggest challenge about it is how vast and complex the game is. A lot of the time, the challenge to Civ 6 is remembering everything and making sure that you keep an eye on all the different elements to exert your game plan and make sure that you can use everything at your disposal. So that means that memory is really challenged in this game. And one of the easiest ways to alleviate that is to have something like map markers, as these tacks provide, to help save your ideas when building a city. So you know what you're doing and you don't need to keep it all in your head at all times to make sure you don't make mistakes. As you can see here, you have all these options of different various things that you want to keep a check on in general. We have the districts, we have the various improvements, and we have all, starting with any specialist ones, which is really nice, but this Civ doesn't have that. And then all the wonders. There are always going to be things that change. One of the most obvious things that changes during the course of a game when you're trying to build a full city is when you uncover certain tech, you research bronze working, you get iron, animal husbandry, you get horses and all that, and they might stick one in one of these places. And obviously when you're trying to figure out what best course of action to perhaps deviate from that, you need to have a plan in place to know what you were planning to do in the first place. Pins allow you to do that. But also they allow you to really get a good grasp of what you're doing. In this case, we have a fantastic settlement area to do, even if it may not look it at first. And the reason is we have access to so many boosts, as well as quite a healthy city itself. My games always revolve around diplomacy, so I'm always looking for a woods tile. So that I can build Monopolies. This allows us to do that within two places. If I was to move here, I can easily use this Monopolies tile with both a theatre square and a holy site adjacent to it, which is a necessity, in order to get starting on the diplomatic points victory. In addition, I'm always looking to do my own kind of thing, but this can change from player to player, but it's fine. The point is that you save it in the form of pins. To have a coastal city with a harbour adjacent to the city centre. This allows the harbour to get a +2 bonus, and it also allows it to get a +1 more because it's adjacent to the crab. So we know that the harbour is there. We're happy to have the city adjacent to a river, even if it's on floodplains, because that allows us to get access not only to fresh water, but also to the water mill, which is very powerful, and also provides a boost in terms of construction. To do so, I really like having a commercial hub here. This means that now this is a triad. These two districts will also get a +1 bonus adjacency for being adjacent to at least 2 more districts. And this will get a +2 from the other river. So this will at least be a +5 at this point in time. +2 from the river, +2 for being adjacent to the harbour, and another +1 for these two. From working from there, we know that we also want to have an aqueduct, and why not have the aqueduct up here? This is the only other place for it that it can possibly be, because it has to be adjacent to the city centre and have something like a river or a mountain to be able to connect to and give you water. By having access to this, we also know that we have more floodplains tiles, and we would really like to use them to be able to build a dam. And the reason why we want to build a dam along with an aqueduct is to be able to not only provide fresh water like the aqueduct does, but housing specifically. And arguably the most powerful reason for wanting to have a dam is the industrial zone. Because we want to make sure this positioning of a dam, an aqueduct, and the industrial zone means that this city, not only being with the palace being the capital, will be an high production city, because this will be at least 5. There's +2 here, +2 here, and the combination of the two being 2 + 2 + 1 to a +5. So we have that going. We also, of course, need to have the holy site for the Monopolies. And while this may be floodplains, and yes, there's a bit of a danger of it flooding at a bad time, and also the potential of the mountain, I would rather position it like this first, with the theatre square. A really nice arrangement. We want to make that the Monopolies temple. So this allows us to notice how much adjacency bonus by having everything built here each district will get by the time that the city is fully built. We can see that the harbor is at least a 4, actually, by the time everything is done, because +1 for the sea resource, +2 for the city center adjacency, and +1 for the 2 districts that are adjacent to it. We can see that the commercial hub is adjacent to 4 districts, so that's a +2. It's adjacent to a river, so that's another +2, and it's adjacent to the harbor, so that is another +2, meaning a total of +6. We can see that the industrial zone is a +5 because it's adjacent to 2 districts, and each of them are +2 themselves, so +2 +2 +1 is +5. We can see that the holy site has a nice 4 adjacency, so that's a +2 for the holy site. But because we've used pins, we can also see that this theater square is missing a district to get a +1 adjacency. And it just so happens that there is one district, while quite versatile in location where you put it, tends to prefer higher appeal and so on, that we would like to build by the time that we finish this city. So how we know which one of these 3 tiles and the fact that we want to build it adjacent to this is because we can see everything here and we can calculate that this is the district that needs a little help. So if I was to plan building the neighborhood here, this one doesn't require any form of adjacency bonuses. This means that we've now sufficiently satisfied all 5 of our important specialist districts, and we know that this city will be cleanly and efficiently built in a way that, barring any mitigating circumstances, will end up with a really high production capital with all the necessary needs for our game.
As you may well already know, there are some stipulations and restrictions in regarding to build your cities. And I just came across something that I found very interesting indeed. So over here, I usually like trying to build my cities about 5 to 6 tiles away, considering how they grow and how big they are. We have one from our capital, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, perfect distance to settle another coastal city with a nice fishing opportunity and all that. But unfortunately, we have Lahore within 3 tiles away from it. And usually you cannot be allowed, you're not allowed to build any new city that is 3 tiles of another. I was really worried that I wasn't going to be able to build. However, obviously we have here the lenses tab, which is a very nice tab, in particular for the settler, mostly. There are some reasons to want to choose continent if you're trying to like get an early civic boost to foreign trade, or you know, some other things that might well be the case for it, like some bonuses to golden era can buff on different continents and things like that. You know, there are other reasons to use some of these other ones, but the one I like using most, of course, is settler. And look what happens when I do. For some reason, I cannot really fathom, they don't prevent you from being able to settle on this tile. This tile is going to get eroded, that's fine, but they don't prevent you from settling on this tile, or this tile, or this tile, that are all 3 away. Maybe because it's a different continent, or a different piece of land, or something. I'm not entirely sure what it is. If you have reasoning as to why this isn't obeying the within 3 rule, you know, please let me know. But I am very intrigued by being able to settle here and making a nice second city within good range of the first. In this part of, I want to talk about the early game. The early game is arguably the most difficult bottleneck in the whole game. Usually, the way I look at the Civ 6 game is it starts quite narrow, you get very limited windows to get through things, you know, making a religion, finding astrology, Mahabodhi Temple, because I like getting diplomacy victories. And after that, it kind of opens itself out, you kind of get a little more leeway, you start preparing for scored competitions, you look towards endgame and so on. It's a little more broad and branch out, and often like the differences between my victories can be anything from 110-20 turns to 170. But the first part of the early game is finding astrology. So if we look here, we can see that we have this, which is an awful mess, because we have to get both of these just to access this. And we have this that can get to sailing. Unfortunately, this is 4 opportunities versus 3 opportunities. It's more likely that astrology will be here than it is in here. But we don't know. We just don't know. And we're kind of meandering, kind of like flailing about. If we don't find astrology in time quickly enough, we will run out of time, as I have done so several of my failed runs and failed to get religion. And for me, if I fail to get religion, that's game over. I just restart, I start again. It's too early, it's too big. You know, religion gets us Mahabodhi for 2 diplo points. It gets us pagodas for additional diplomatic favor. It's very important to get it. So how do we go about getting it? Well, obviously, the best part of it is to find the boost. And sometimes, just by having a little bit of an observant eye and an understanding of what you're looking at, you can find the opportunity well before it's too late. And in this situation, I have a barbarian camp that I'd like to be able to take control of. There are obviously a couple of city-states, so I need to time my attack so that I'm the one that takes this as opposed to them and all that sort of stuff. But for right now, I just want to go here. If you notice, very strangely, we have opened our eyes to this tile. Because we're on hills, we get nice vision. Vision's really important. Settlers get better vision than everybody else. They get 1 additional vision, but generally vision's really nice. And putting yourself on high ground, of course, as you would expect, gives you better vision. We have this strange tile. It offers 1 culture and 1 science. It's not luxury good like Mercury or anything like that that would naturally have those sort of attributes tied to it. It's just a regular tile. It is like, what is going on here? And the reason why this exists has something to do with one of these tiles that it's adjacent to, because one of these tiles will be a wonder. If you can notice these things, very small, insignificant things, that of course you need to have the toggle, which you do with Y, to even see them. Very important to have that in your games. This allows you to use that information and go, I know there's a wonder somewhere here because of this tile, which means I know that I can find a natural wonder, locate astrology on this complicated tech tree, and beeline to it before other civs do, before it's too late. So, if we pass the turn...
I am fond of pigs.
Good for you, Sean. So, let's see what happens when we do this. Ah, it's Singy!
Signy is a 250 square mile tiger trap made up on massive obelisks, riddled with jagged spears, and yes, they will cut your pretty face.
There we go! Alright, and as you can see, we have just got the boost for astrology. Which allows us, yes, as was expected, that it would be lined up here. But at least now we can beeline for it, right? We don't need to go 7 turns into this, realize this is a dead end, and be stranded in too many turns too late. So that's really important. Use the toggle, yeah? That's Y, the Y button on the keyboard. Keep a careful eye on all the tiles that you have available. And you never know, especially in the early game, what opportunities may present themselves because a strange tile looks awfully different to everything else. Hello, you find me here looking to try and settle my 3rd city. I already have some pressure up from the north, which is very irritating. In a bit of a bind. I have some loyalty pressure to consider. I have some other factors. And basically, you might know that I like to play diplomacy games. And not only do I like to play diplomacy games, I tend to like trying to build my cities in a particular way. I like being coastal. I like being adjacent to a river. It allows me access to fresh water. It allows me access to the watermill. I also really like building certain triads of harbor with commercial hub and so on to get a ton of money and a ton of production and the likes of that. And I have a few choices to make. And my point here, though it kind of skirts around a few things, is take your time, especially since this is not competitive. This is a single player experience. Take your time to really consider all the options when trying to build a city, because once you've built something, you can't really go back. You have some options here. I could settle here. This is adjacent to the river and allows me no loyalty pressure at the moment, so it's not bad.
I could settle here, but there's -4, and the way the numbers work, they usually lie, so it'd probably be a little greater than that. But neither of these really are great, and the reason why is because of this tile here, the wine. I personally like to think that the best way to build a city is in a big triangle for adjacency purposes, because with a big triangle like this, you have 3 tiles that can get 4 districts each adjacency, which for +2. And you have 3 other tiles which each also have +1. And I believe for 6 tiles, a big triangle like this is the most efficient way to generate as high a yield of adjacency bonus as possible. And when you have building things like holy sites and industrial zones and harbors and so on, that all matters. That all helps your city to be as strong as possible. So I really like building in big, free length-sided triangles. But I can't do that because you can't build on top of a luxury resource. So this wine is really getting in my way. And I'm like, well, how do I deal with that? But then it occurred to me, what if I consider settling on this tile instead? I really like being adjacent to a river, but that doesn't mean I need to be either side of the river. If I build here, I'm still adjacent to this river. And if I build my commercial hub here, it's still adjacent to the river for a +2 adjacency. I can also put my harbor here, which would be access to 2, not just 1, which if it was here to the oysters, or the pearls, well. But both of these would be adjacency for a +4 harbor, making it even stronger. And it would allow me an access to a different kind of triangle, to the originally thought of one, that actually doesn't have any sort of wine or other obstacles to building. So I'm going to go and settle here instead. I also get access to this, but where I'd not have got access to it now that we see it, if I was here, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. Just something to bear in mind. While it has a -1, I can quickly find a governor to help with it, but I think it will be fine. -1 shouldn't be too big a deal. After all, we have this city going in 1 turn to 4, so that will help with the alleviation of that as well. So as you can see here, we can build it 3 by 3. Not only that, it will give me access to a dam on this tile. Instead of building the city center here, I can build a dam here. And if I can build a dam here, it means I can build industrial zone here for a +2 adjacency. Plus the other +2 because there will be 4 districts here. And the other holy site for this city could be here with the adjacency to some woods, much like this one. And this will also have adjacency to other districts. It just seems like after a few minutes thought, it's a much better position. And of course, as always, once I build the city, and once I have my idea figured out, in order to not forget it, in order to not mistake it for anything else and have a change of heart midway through without knowing the ramifications of it, I'm going to put pins and to cement like what my idea is going to be.
In this video, I'd like to discuss the early game from a holistic perspective, rather than necessarily any particular win cons involved. As you can see, Mali is our closest neighbor, and they are being very irritating with their frontal settlements with Gao and being very aggressive taking land that, honestly, I was hoping to settle there myself. They get advantages in Deity that you can't really compete with, like free starting settlers and things like that. However, there are things that we can do to mitigate the damage. I've been exploring quite a nice little bit of area that I really would like to take advantage of right here. And actually, if we go down this water even further, we can see there's even more potential land over here and so on. I have a settler coming in, and I'm very interested in making it over here to actually settle on this river and so on. However, I need information. And how do you get information? Well, in the early game, information is map knowledge, predominantly. And map knowledge is best acquired by choosing city-states. Because once you choose a city-state, like, say, Mitla, look how much more map gain we have. Now we know that there is a lake here. This would be a great place to actually settle, because then we have fresh water. So, if I just pass the turn, we're not going to worry about the rest of the turn. I've already got a save right going. It's fine. You will notice that in my bid to try and help become friendly with all these, I have inadvertently given Mali an opportunity to walk through this city, and now they are threatening to beat my own settler to get across to the other side and settle in this valuable land that I have, eyed up here. How am I going to stop this? Well, if I go with my builder here, I don't have access to the aqueduct that I want to build here yet, so I can't place that down this turn. That would require a little more science to get to this. But by settling a builder here, my settler can easily still walk through my city center to get to here. But crucially, this settler with 2 movement cannot bypass my builder here to get across. So if I was to pass the turn again, they're fighting Mittler. They had a race against time to try and take Mittler before. Ah, look. They run away again. They're blocked off. There is the potential for this as well. That is something I have to worry about. But they've been just standing here. Anyway, this is simply a way to take advantage and make sure that they are not capable of stopping me from taking the land that I so desire. Proceed over here. Hopefully you get to understand that vision is paramount, and the thing to take away from this particular part is that the best way to get vision quickly and early is choosing city-states. Because now with the information from Mittler, I know I really want to make sure I settle here. Preferably on this tower because of free away, adjacent, maybe even aqueduct, but I probably want to put a commercial hub. Something like that. Hello. You joined me in the beginning of another game, and today we're going to have a look at how to kickstart an economy. No, it's not some crazy wonder to build. It's not settling near the Dead Sea, but we will try to do that as well. It's not, city-states or governors or anything like that. The best way to kickstart an economy from a miserable 9 is by having some kind of neighbor and trading luxury goods. 18 gold per turn for 30 turns, which is 540 gold, plus 38. 578 gold out of just this for 30 turns is nuts. Extrapolate that forwards to a variety of different luxuries. You can get any 4 luxuries on the continent, go to a second continent, there you have access to 8. You get certain great people, they might even be able to get you more. If you unlock a money and use certain city-states, you can get more. There's a whole bunch of ways to do so. And soon you'll find yourself rocketing in money.
From the dust to which our civilization first rose, so too shall we return. As the light of our people fades to nothingness, we wonder if one will rise to rekindle our flame.